Does this place feel eerily familiar to you? And at the same time, does it also feel off? You may think, Rotan, that's just Orgrimmar, but what if I told you it wasn't? World of Warcraft has a lot of liminal spaces, and no, I don't just mean the crypts or the ruined cities or mostly empty areas of the game, I mean the real liminal spaces, the ones you aren't supposed to see, the backrooms of World of Warcraft, so to speak. I've always been fascinated with liminal spaces even before I knew of the term, these dreamlike areas that seem weirdly familiar and comforting, but just uncanny enough to set me on edge. Breaking out of bounds in a video game was a good way for me to find this feeling even at an early age, and here I am still seeking it out. I've seen videos online about the liminal spaces of World of Warcraft, but none of them ever really fully scratched that itch for me. The only real liminal space I can think of that enraptured me in World of Warcraft were the Karazhan crypts. They're empty but purposefully built, and weirdly familiar in both the architecture and the textures used in the environment. But even this crypt didn't sate my desire for these peculiar places, it only fed the hunger. And so I went searching, and the more time that I spent looking, the more liminality I found. Let's stroll through some of these liminal spaces and experience their grandeur and weirdness together. Some of these are going to be creepier, some of these will just be weird, and some will be maybe humorous, but they all hold an uneasy comfort for me and maybe any other World of Warcraft players out there. These feel like the WoW zones that I might find in my dreams, or a dream that teeters on being considered a nightmare. One of the best ways to find liminal spaces in World of Warcraft is to enter a dungeon that has an outside area, like Shadowfang Keep, and then break out of bounds. Now, normally jumping out of Shadowfang Keep will take you back to the entrance, but if you go far enough and get over the loading zone, you'll be out in this weird area of Silverpine Forest that's bereft of any life or movement. It's trapped in a stasis of sorts, but this one isn't very interesting. So I moved on, and the more I dug, the deeper the rabbit hole seemed to go. I found myself in the Stormwind Stockades, or the other wing of the Stormwind Stockades. It's called the Stormwind Vault in the files, but it's also called the Alliance Official Prison. Contained within this vault/prison lies another set of cells that were presumably for criminals, murderers, and other distasteful individuals. Let's head down the stairs and see what we can find. Rather than a prison or jail or set of stockades filled with the doldrums of our society, I'm met with silence. I try to explore around these strange empty cells, and I start to get lost as I descend deeper and deeper into the dungeon, going around confusing corridors and finding pathways where there shouldn't be. Finally, in my mad scramble through these chilling and claustrophobic halls, the walls open around me as I enter a central chamber. But still here, even as deep as I've gone, there's nothing. Something about the maze-like halls and dark lighting and weird textures puts me on edge here, as if there's something just around the corner. But the constant presence of nothingness is all I find, and a feeling of depressing apathy can wash over me in places like this, so it's probably time to find somewhere brighter. Perhaps this isn't exactly what I meant by brighter. This area is listed in the game files as prison in all lowercase, so it's extra menacing. An empty, nearly textureless room, a perfect box, trapped forever. Rumor has it that this location was used for game masters to teleport cheaters or rule breakers to back in the day in order to interrogate them about what they were doing, and generally lock their character away here forever without escape. Did there used to be another texture on these walls, or was it always meant to just be white and blue checkerboard? Even the chair in the middle shares the same texture, and also the chair is literally just named the chair. The air here hangs with an ominous aura. This prison is actually located on GM Island, directly underneath the highest peak on this tiny little outcrop. This isn't the only inescapable box that one can find themselves in. Here I find myself standing on a wide, stretched box. How did I even get here? Did I fall through a crack in the world or enter some eldritch geometry to get to this strange realm? Above me, directly in the center of the box, I see another box. So I swim through the air to get there. Wait, swim through the air? What's happening here? Touching the outside of this box pulls me into it, and suddenly I feel slightly more cramped. In the middle of this box is another box. In my head, I know what's going to happen if I reach out to it again, but my curiosity drives me onward. This recursive nightmare continues until a critical point is reached, where my body will take up the entire cube, but that means I'll always be touching the next cube inside this recursion, forcing me ever inward and smaller until I get crushed into nothing. Is this where we go after death? A barren, gray landscape in front of an occult altar? Once again, I feel trapped and alone, but not quite fully alone. Behind me, there's an impassable, invisible wall, and all around me, the terrain is just too steep for me to climb. While I feel alone and watched at the same time, I also feel slightly comforted here, like in this barren wasteland of nothingness I can just relax and breathe. I used to have a fantasy of just escaping the world, the real world in real life, and going into this black void temporarily just to allow myself to breathe, relax, and recharge before taking life back on again. Somehow I'm getting the same feeling here, so perhaps hanging around here a bit wouldn't really hurt anything. As I doze off, I feel a sudden jerk and I awaken here, a nightmarish and twisted landscape. Above me, the world seems to have splintered into 1,000 harsh and jagged rocks. It's an unforgiving vista. I see a building in the distance and I have the urge to run for cover. A skeletal griffin patrols above, and just as I reach the doors of this building, I find them blocked. Worse even, I find the whole building warped and wrong. This hell of liminality is one that provides little of that uneasy comfort I'm searching for, and my desire to escape grows. A haze begins to cloud my vision. I can make out lights through this haze, and I step forward, not knowing where else to go. I find myself in a night elf house, but I can barely see right in front of me, and turning around is the same treatment. This thick haze is making traversal and understanding where I really am very difficult, but even with this fog and a muddy understanding of my environment, I can still feel some sense of similarity. We're actually in the Eastern Plaguelands, but the ground is green and uncorrupted. Maybe, just maybe, I can make it to that portal to the Ghostlands and see where it takes me. Stepping through the portal has taken me to the Ghostlands, the normal Ghostlands. A sense of relief washes over me, but through my journey, I've had a realization. The biggest liminal space in World of Warcraft is the entire game, the entire world itself. Here I am standing before Ragnaros, a world-ending threat that we defeated 20 years ago, but still here live in front of me. And 5 minutes later, here I am standing in front of the Lich King, another threat that we dealt with over 15 years ago, but he's speaking to me as if he's currently putting the world in danger.
When my work is complete.
A stone's throw away, here's Deathwing, who came after the Lich King and also claims to be threatening the world. He's long gone, yet they're all speaking in present tense. And here I stand in Tearsfall Glades, but if I talk to Zoradormi, here I am in another version of Tearsfall Glades that's a little scarier. Now, here I am in front of the Dark Portal, but again, if I talk to Zoradormi, here I am in front of a completely different version of that same portal. It's as if all time in Azeroth has been squished into a single moment. Ragnaros is just as alive and well as Farak from the player's perspective. And even weirder than that, Smolderon, Ragnaros' replacement and successor in lore, is just as accessible as Ragnaros is still. To me, this idea alone gives off this great sense of liminality, that nothing we do has purpose and all time, future, past, and present is existing in the same moment in World of Warcraft. Perhaps it's time the world moved on. Or perhaps we all like living and experiencing and exploring these strange and comfortable liminal spaces. Which would you prefer? Thanks for watching and take care.